Opening the South Maui Community Plan Advisory Committee meeting at 5:30 p.m. And let's start with a roll call.
Good evening, everyone. Is my microphone on? Can you hear me? Okay, great. Chair Rob Weltman, Vice Chair Daniel Kanahele, Tova Callender, thank you. Everett Dowling, Lehuanani Huddleston, Vernon Kalanikau is going to be late. Randall Leach, okay. Mike Moran, thank you. Cody Nemeth, okay, maybe he's a little late. Gary Pesson, present, okay. Kyoki Felter is absent. Jennifer Sullivan, and Brian Ward, thank you.
Thank you. Velina mai inadalo ke komike odalo o kai ulo no ka papa odalo no Maui hama. Velina mai no e ka po e o ke ke ana odalo ke kalano o Maui e me ka da ho Maui ne. I ho ma ho ana kako I ke yahi ina mea hana apau me na pala pala aina no Maui hama. So our topics tonight are a review of all the adopted actions, which is section 4.4, the maps and the land use designations that inform them, and the sub-area description, sections 3.1 to 3.5. To propose a change to a decision that we have made in the past, a member makes a motion to amend something previously adopted, as in section 12 of Robert's Rules. It needs a second to start discussion. An example of a motion to amend something previously adopted. An example of a motion to amend is, I move to amend the land use designation of the Kukui Mall property from small town center to agricultural. Since there are many agenda items, and it may take most of the evening to get to the later ones, we will accept testimony on any of the evening's 3 topics, either at the beginning of the meeting or just before the particular topic. If you have testified in the beginning, you can't testify again on the same topic when we get to it. If you are testifying remotely, please do not turn off your speakers so you can hear when you're getting to 3 minutes. Are there any other housekeeping items? Daniel?
Chair, I would like to go back to having us read the vision statement for South Maui at some point, whenever you wish for that to happen, but I'd like to see us do that. As we come to, with a few meetings left, it'd be good to review it.
If we were to do it in this meeting, this would be the time to do it.
Shall I proceed?
Please.
This plan reflects the future the South Maui community is striving to achieve. The vision is the community's expression of this future and should guide the actions of decision makers throughout the life of the plan. South Maui's vision. South Maui's beaches, coastal waters, and wetlands are restored and thriving, with affordable housing, close to good jobs, and a variety of transportation options, including safe walking and biking paths lined with trees. The region's businesses, parks, and neighborhoods are connected, maintaining the small town lifestyle. Cultural resources are protected and celebrated, enhancing South Maui's sense of place. Thank you, Chair.
Should we appoint someone for the next time, at this time? Okay. Someone who has not done it before, please raise your hand. I know Gary has not because he was not on the committee before, so easy target. Okay, Gary for next time. Any other housekeeping? Mike?
Thank you, Chair. Unless I missed it, I would like to ask the planning department if we're going to get the list of significant sites. I don't recall we ever saw it, and we're getting to the end.
We do not have a list of the specific sites. We can use the ones that are in the current South Maui Community Plan.
Okay, if that's it, if we could, I think it would be good to move them over instead of telling folks. So it's the same thing as the other one. If we're creating an updated plan, I would ask if we could, even if that's what it is, if we could include that in the new revised plan. Mahalo.
Any other housekeeping? Okay. Welcoming Vernon, noting his presence.
Do you know if Cody's coming?
Okay, so we're missing Cody and Keoki, but we do have quorum. Okay, so opening public testimony now on all three items which I mentioned. First testifier, please. Go ahead, Kavika.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Christian Chan from Wailea Golf. I know many of you. Just testifying on sub-areas 4 and 5, and specifically plugging the public workshop that we are hosting tomorrow right here at the Malcolm Center from 5:30 to 7:30. We'll be discussing ideas and having conversations about our property's potential role in the South Maui Community Plan. We've mentioned this event before. I'm hoping you all might have gotten the notification and invitation. It was sent through the KCA, thank you Mike, as well as the WCA and a variety of other organizations. So hope to see you all there, everyone in this room, everyone online, and anyone who you might want to share the event with. So yeah, thank you, and I don't know if there's any questions.
Any clarifying questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next testifier.
Good evening, members of the CPAC. My name is Isaac Hall. I'm here on behalf of Keoho Honu'ula Inc. I've submitted some written testimony. This is about C5, Subarea 5, and the updated land use designations. Upon further deliberation, Keoho's Board of Directors has decided that the available community plan land use designation that best accommodates the mix of uses engaged in by our nonprofit corporation on its property is agriculture. So based on what your chairperson said, we would now ask for a motion from your body to replace the current residential community land use designation with agriculture instead. We took a look at agriculture, and for many different reasons, the zoning agricultural, what that permits suits us very, very well. We're outside, as it's been pointed out, of the urban land use boundaries. Most of the land in that area outside is in agriculture. The Ferreira parcel immediately Malka of us has been placed in agriculture, and so it would be compatible with us to be in agriculture with them. So we asked for that. So we respectfully request that the South Maui CPAC committee vote to, I guess, file or make a motion to amend the current residential designation with the agricultural designation. And I know we spent a lot of time arguing in favor of the residential district, and we appreciate all the effort you made on that, but we really do think for everybody involved, the agriculture designation is the best one, and ask you to do that for us. Thank you very much. Oh, before I finish, we definitely still oppose the open space designation. I don't even know if that's still on anybody's agenda, but if it is, we do oppose it. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, I'll answer them now if you want to.
Thank you. Any clarifying questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Next testifier.
afternoon. My name is Dwight Burns. I'm with Maui Nui Empowered, a board member, vice president. So I've seen you guys at the last meeting. First off, I want to thank all of you for putting Kihei on the map, making that recommendation for putting Kihei on the map. I think that it's important to have that, projects such as that, where it's going to be, the build-out going to be over time, like Kealani and Maui-Lani. It's not going to be just piecemeal like in certain areas in South Kihei, South Kihei, out towards Wailea. This project can help by doing this project, taking your time and planning it right. It's going to help with the flooding problems that we experience on South Kihei Road. So thank you again. Thank you guys for making that consideration. Really appreciate it. And thank all of you here. Thanks.
Any clarifying questions? Go ahead.
Hello, Mr. Burns. I'm sorry, what was your first name?
Dwight.
Dwight. And what organization are you with? The Maui?
Empowering Maui Nui.
Empower.
Yeah.
Empower Maui Nui.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. Next testifier, please.
Well, it was close. Aloha, everyone. My name is Bruce U'u, Executive Director of a newly formed nonprofit called Maui Nui Empowered. Part of our mission is to engage with individuals to raise awareness about the pressing challenges Maui is currently confronting, which is this. Also, champion causes that directly impact our local residents, such as promoting affordable housing, enhancing quality of life, and expanding employment opportunities. I'm here to aloha and mahalo you guys for the CPAC's recommendation to designate Kihei Mauka on the growth maps is a good one and will help provide future housing for our keiki and their keiki in a planned, coordinated manner. And the mention is keiki and their keiki. I'll give you an example. One example is Maui-Lani. In the 80s, was zoned for 1,000 acres. We are 44 years later, and it's still not completed. So when they say keiki and keikis, that place, Mauka, Kihei Mauka, is going to be far past. I'll be dead and gone by the time that is built out, if it stays at its current pace. And some of my food for thought when I'm giving testimony about some of the issues we have. Hawaii is the most restrictive land use regulations in the state. New Jersey is number 2. We have probably a third more regulations than they do. Obviously, we don't want to be like New Jersey. Only 4% of the land in the state is zoned residential, and 0.3 is zoned multifamily. Hence some of the problems. In 2011, 296,400 Native Hawaiians called Hawaii home, and about 221,600 were out of state. That's a difference of 74,800. Fast forward 10 years, in 2021, we have 309,800 in Hawaii home, and 370,000 in other states. That is 60,200 out of state. My question to you, what about the next 10 years? My next question is, who are we saving this for? Aloha, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Any clarifying questions? Thank you. Next testifier, please.
Aloha. Nick Drance from South Kihei. I wanted to give you some general comments. There's a lot of chatter on social media about what we're doing here. And I made some notes from what I understood. Last meeting, we talked about the end of this process being ended prematurely, possibly because CPAC had less opportunity for scheduled meetings with the public, and the discussion was about whether we could extend their proposed deadline. So I wonder if a decision has been made and whether CPAC has a commitment to have the same amount of time allotted to them for community input as was originally discussed.
So testifiers don't ask questions to the CPAC. You can testify and then we can ask questions of you.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then at some point, let's find out when we can ask questions and get answers. Okay, so we want to see about making that time up for the original commitment there, and let's stick to that plan. And I wanted to mention, you know, in the process of rebuilding Lahaina, that involves community input, pretty much the extent that we're guaranteed that for the most part, the wishes of residents are going to be withheld. And I'm wondering, is that litmus test also being applied here? If it applies there, it should apply here. And I also want to mention that South Maui universally online is recognized as the premier resort destination part of Maui. And tourists already complain about overcrowding, traffic, and so forth. So I don't want to, let's think about not killing the goose that laid the golden egg and giving tourists a vista of homes and buildings on hillsides. And that's everything that they're trying to escape from on the mainland. So let's not do that. The other point I wanted to mention is about the countywide plan, and there's got to be some point where we get questions and answers, but the countywide plan goes to 2030, and the wishes of Maui residents are clearly stated there, like super clear through Focus Maui Nui, which is a report, as you all know, that was used as the foundation for the countywide and island-wide plan. I have a copy of it if you wish. The wishes of residents, every single word in that survey is recorded. And like I say, I'll give you a copy of it if you like. But the kind of development that I see goes against the countywide plan, the mission statement, and the core principles. And that's on the first page of the county's website and in the report. So I, at some point, would like to understand what that is. And I have, oh, okay. Time allotted remaining? I'm at 3. Okay. Here's a copy of the core principles for the countywide plan. I've made 15 copies of it. I'd like you to read it. I'd really appreciate it if you would, because it, for the most part, says much of the development that we're talking about here is against the wishes of residents, and it's against what the countywide plan, which is established by ordinance. So last comment, I don't know if we have the legal authority to violate the countywide plan because it was passed by ordinance. Who should I give this to here? Here, thank you. Any questions I can answer?
Thank you. Any clarifying questions?
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next testifier, please.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jane Ugolino Burns, and I am a resident. I was born and raised on Maui. I primarily grew up, spent my childhood in Kihei, grew up in Kihei, went to the first elementary school, and anyways, I'm here to thank CPAC for the recommendation to designate the Kihei Mauka for growth. That's a great idea. And, you know, I've been hearing a lot about the future. So I bought the future. Not because, well, because we, you know, it's Mama and Papa duty tonight. And my husband and I both wanted to support this. We raised our son and daughter here in Kihei. And my son has always wanted to come back to Kihei and buy a home. Unfortunately, he couldn't. It's outpriced, it's too much, it's overpriced. He had to settle for a $600,000 home in Wailuku that's probably just as old as I am. So with that being said, you know, this plan is for the future. You know, my grandson asked me, Mama, what are we doing here? And I go, well, you know, your papa and I, we want to ensure that you have a place, you have a home that you can purchase in the future. And he said, I don't want to buy a home. And I want to change the narrative with that. I want to set the belief and the value that you are going to be able, you know, our future is going to be able to afford a home and stay here and live here and raise their children and grandchildren. I still have my adult friends are still moving away to Vegas. Why? We all know why, right? They want a better future for their kids. They're able to have a future, have a home there. Prior to my son purchasing his home, he was living in a two-bedroom ohana. He has 3 boys. Our kids need to thrive and live and grow in you know, spacious, so that they can, you know, be our future, be, you know, good for our future, better for our future. Anyways, thank you so much for my having me here. Any questions?
Thank you. Any clarifying questions for the testifier?
We moved 1 year ago.
Okay, yeah, he say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next testifier, please.
Aloha, Commissioners. Zandra Amaral Kraus, Ko'i Noa. It's a privilege to stand before you. Thank you for hearing us. This morning I sat through the council meeting, which dealt with the various organizations that are organized to take care of our family members who had devastating losses in Kihei. It was informative. I can almost see this happening in Kihei. My house, as all of you know, because I've stated and stipulated that on the onset, is at the end of Ohukai, corner of Ho'alike and Ohukai. I was blessed when I came home from the mainland after my husband passed away to be able to get county housing on the lottery. And I would like to see that made available to our children, our grandchildren, with me, great-grandchildren even. I think when we look at Kihei Mauka, what we need to diligently do, friends, is look at, well, first of all, I go back to when they built Maui Prince. When Cebu came in, it was undeveloped area. And I remember a very astute uncle, who now has passed, said, if you're going to have anything in Ma'alaya, Makena, it needs to be planned because of the cultural essence of the environment. I grew up with the Thompsons in there. They're long-time owners. They no longer own the property. They were forced to sell it. But I had the privilege of spending time there. I think when we look at Kihei Mauka, we need seriously, my friends, look at long-range plans. Brother here brought up Maui Lani. When Maui Lani first went into the planning stage, my son was in intermediate school. Well, he's graduated school, graduated college, he's married with 5 children. He has a house that he has been living in for the past 15, 20 years maybe, up there. His son, who was not born at the time, bought a house, lives up there. So when we're looking at long-range planning, we're looking at infrastructure, having to put in the infrastructure that we so desperately need, but not building it all in one day. Maui Lani is still not built out. So I humbly ask you guys, when you look at Kihei Mauka, plan and let the developers plan for long-term planning, because that will take care of our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, our mo'opuna and our kapunas. Mahalo.
Thank you. Any clarifying questions? Daniel?
Hi, Danielle.
Aloha, Sandra. How long have you lived in your residence up there in the Ohukai area?
That was, gosh, it's been 35 years, I believe. Yes.
35 years.
Yes.
And in that time,
I was the original owner. I was the 14 drawn. That's a blessing. That house is my blessing. I'm sorry, Daniel. You were going to ask.
yeah, it's okay, Sandra. And how many fires have affected your area in those 35 years?
In those 35 years, there's been at least one fire every year. Every year. The last one, July 4th, down the street of Ohukai. The Hayes family that's building that industrial area was totally on fire, 4th of July. And then the 8th, when the Kula fire happened, that Kula fire came all the way down the pasture behind my house this last time, the time before that, and the time before that. We literally stood on our roofs, hosing down our homes. I was in tears. I am 72 years old. I do not have the strength to fight fires that way anymore. Now, we're blessed because my cousin Brandon raises cattle back there, but they're rarely there because it's barren. And I do know that Haleakala Ranch is subdividing their property, and it is for sale. And that's part of the long-range plans, Daniel. I mean, we need things on the papala, the pepa, to tell us this is where we are today. But you know, this is where we're going to be tomorrow. And our children and grandchildren need to say, oh, but no worry. Because you see, that's where we're going to be when we get old enough to buy. This is what the residents and families of Maui Lani are doing.
Any additional questions for the testifier? Thank you.
No, thank you, Sandra.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Daniel. Thank you for the questions.
Next testifier, please.
Good evening, CPAC members. Rory Frampton on behalf of Ko'ono'ulu and Haleakala Ranch. And like the speakers before me, we thank you very much for the designations that's on the maps. Just for the record, the land's not for sale right now, but that's okay, Sandra. We appreciate your testimony. And yeah, and I would say that this land, it does conform to the urban growth boundary. There was mention earlier about some parts of the plan not conforming to the Maui Island Plan, but it is consistent with the Maui Island Plan growth boundary as well as a designation. So thank you very much for that. I did notice, and I apologize I don't have written testimony, but there are 3 circular park areas that were shown on this plan that on our plan they were intended to be roundabouts. And so we had conceptually shown roundabouts with green dots in the middle, and then when planning put that on the maps, they put them down as parks. And so we'd humbly ask for the removal of those 3 circular areas. You can kind of see them if you look at any of the growth maps for North Kihei, South Kihei, or on the area of change. There's also a few discontiguous little green strips that I guess are supposed to represent gulches, but they just look like isolated strips on the maps. And that might be difficult to plan around, and so we'd like for those to be removed too. But with those minor requests, again, we thank you for all the work that you've done on this plan. Any questions?
Any clarifying questions for the testifier?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next testifier. Do we have any testifiers online?
Hi, Rob. We have a number of testifiers online. The first testifier is Lucienne Dene. She's testifying on agenda items C2 and C5.
Aloha, and nice to see you all again. This is Lucienne Diné testifying as a former member of the General Plan Advisory Committee, and just trying to share a little bit of the rationale that we took in reviewing the South Maui lands back there in 2007, 2008. On area C2, we very much, looked at that area, the Mauka side of it, and the area that has already had growth potential in the Pu'ulani Promenade, 88 acres. And we saw that, the chief goal seemed to be that we needed to look at ways to minimize traffic from new growth in that area. And in fact, I think the urban growth boundary that the CPAC or GPAC put together was far more constrained than what was eventually passed by the county council. I will mention that the General Plan Advisory Committee had the complete support of the Planning Commission to have a smaller Mauka urban growth boundary for various reasons, most of which was we really weren't going to need it in 20 years. We were going to need some of it. So why just, designate everything when you're only going to need some? I also want to move on to the urban growth boundary in area C5, the far south end of the planning area in McKenna. There was a boundary agreed to, and it made it all the way through the Planning Commission and the Council to let the far south end of McKenna remain in agriculture. Very heartened to see Mr. Hall and the board of Keho o McKenna come to the conclusion that ag is a good fit for their opportunities. But there are several other areas outside that urban growth boundary that are colored yellow on the map that's posted online, meaning that they could have apartment buildings on them. That really just doesn't fit the area. It really should be either ag or, in the case of areas that, have developed for housing, perhaps rural residential. But I humbly ask you to honor the work that was done on the urban growth boundary in the Maui Island Plan at that end of the map, and leave the urban growth boundary as the place where things like residential with apartment and single family are remaining, and beyond that have either rural residential or agriculture. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Any clarifying questions for the testifier? Okay, thank you. Next testifier, please.
Next testifier is Lena Ala Vetter.
Aloha mai. Aloha, can you hear me? Hello? Okay, let me try and move inside the house. Is this a little better?
We can hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. I didn't get a response. Okay, aloha. My name is Lena Ala Kulaloyo Vetter, and my family has been in Hawaii since time immemorial. I am the daughter of Leslie and Lucille Kulaloyo. I am here as the vice president of Keoho o Honua Ula Inc., and I'm here to reiterate and support the testimony of Keoho's lawyer, Isaac Hall, and his recommendation to designate our property from residential to agriculture. The mission of Keoho, and I did give testimony previously and sent in also a written testimony as well, but I just wanted to reiterate that in the past 25 years, our Pu'uhonua at Mo'oloa is a halau. It is a cultural and educational center for multi-generational groups throughout Hawaii, and it's a cultural repository that has been kept as a Pu'uhonua under the protection of Keoho o Honua Ula Inc. our purpose is not to build homes. Our purpose is to feed our people and to provide a sanctuary. Infrastructure is in place that includes irrigation to water our mai'a, niu, lilikoi, oranges, limes, ulu, mango, kukui, and other flora. Fencing, we have fencing as well to protect our keiki and our kupuna. And we do not, like I reiterated, we do not have plans in the future for building construction, as was mentioned before with the previous speaker. Another thing I would like to say is that it's difficult when Western terms are constantly erasing the correct land designation terms used in Hawaiian before colonization. So for example, if you have in your CPAC, your maps, there's terms like sub-area, transit corridor, promenade, new growth, smart growth, and it parallels, to me, it parallels what is happening in the United Nations and their goals as well. I'm also here to testify on B5, and I noticed that on B5 that CPAC had added 5.04A under historical properties. I'm assuming that's historical properties. One is the Palauea Cultural Preserve. That's already in preservation. So I'm not sure why that is being brought up and added to this CPAC. Secondly, same item, numbers 4, 5, and 6. It has Ka'eo North Preserve, Ka'eo South Preserve, and Ka'eo Mauka Preserve that is part of a settlement, a legal settlement. So I'm not sure why that legal settlement, that's separate, should be included in this CPAC and be part of this. If there's a legal settlement, that's mean that it's between them and the developer. So that's a little confusing for me. Also, the Grand Wailea Burial Preserves, that's set in stone. And we should also be reminded that when iwi kupuna are buried, they should have the respect and sanctity of not going over there and having educational purposes. You know, the way I was taught from my father and my grandmother and my kupuna was that once they are buried, they're po, ho'ihi, malama. And to continue to have people go there and create ceremonies, sometimes those kind of things need to be left alone. And we will be seeing that in the future with Lahaina as well. And so I thank this CPAC. I thank every one of you here. I wish I could be there in person, but thank you for allowing me the time for participating in this. Aloha.
Thank you. Any clarifying questions? Okay, thank you. Next testifier, please.
The next testifier is Doug Ballard. Doug, you're muted. Doug, your audio is muted.
There, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you on Blue Jeans.
Okay, thank you. Doug Ballard, South Maui resident, I want to thank the CPAC for ensuring that we're able to have this link here today and for future meetings. And so thank you very much. I wanted to comment on Pi'ilani Promenade, which had been originally designated residential by the CPAC, and then that was subsequently changed to small town center. And I would like to recommend that it be turned back to residential. Small town center is predominantly a commercial designation. And I think we need to be careful about over-commercializing South Maui. Because when you do that, that draws business and activity away from existing centers that are already struggling. And as these struggling centers decline, that has a negative effect on the surrounding neighborhoods. And so I think that we have to be mindful of that. And I think we have to be mindful also of the great traffic impact and congestion that over-commercialization can bring. And I would suggest that that property right along the Pi'ilani Promenade, right along Pi'ilani Highway, be turned back to residential. And so those are my comments.
Thank you. Any clarifying questions for the testifier? Okay, thank you. Next testifier, please.
The next testifier is John Gellert.
Hello. So I'm also testifying on the Pi'ilani Mall, and I'm opposed to that. And I remember the last time this came up, and that change was made in the zoning, and I would rather see it be residential now that we have a high school. And whatever is built there, eventually, we really have to be concerned about the flooding, and something needs to be done about that. And having a parking lot is just the worst idea. That just all the water would just run off. So anyway, just short comments. I think Doug did a way better job than me, but I'll put in my voice here. Thank you very much. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Any clarifying questions? Okay, very good. Next testifier, please.
The next testifier is Kelly King.
I'm trying to unmute my, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, this picture is really fuzzy. Apologize for that. I've got some short comments on section B, and then some comments on the maps, and then short comments on section D. So I have 3 different items I want to testify on, if that's okay. But first, I want to thank the CPAC for doing the virtual meetings again, and I appreciate all of you who voted to hold off until that could happen. The public greatly appreciates it and can be better engaged. And thank you to those of you who are there in person to testify. And I also wanted to thank and welcome our new member, Gary Passon, to the CPAC. But on the second B, I just wanted to give a cautionary word on the policies that you folks are passing, because Randy Wagner did a great job and gave great input on policies that should be put in place and conditions that should be put in place before anything can be built, especially in the Mauka area, Mauka of the highway. And I appreciate the CPAC taking her comments and putting them into policy. But the cautionary word is the fact that in the past, these policies have been roundly ignored by the administration and by developers and by the Planning Commission. And so we need to be diligent if we're going to put conditions in there that those are adhered to, and no development can happen until those conditions actually happen. And infrastructure is going to be so important to have in place, especially I wanted to let you know one of the issues that the KCA is considering as far as asking for state legislation is design and engineering for Greenbelt, Mauka of the highway, which is going to be very important for protecting us from future fires. So this is one thing that the Infrastructure Committee on the KCA board is working on. That's my, and also I wanted to thank Daniel for reading the vision again and getting that back into the vernacular of this meeting, because it's very important to keep that front and center, that this is the community's expression. It's not developers or outside landowners' expression of what we want our future to be. It's what this community who's here and now needs it to be. And so next I wanted to go on to the map section, section C. First I want to thank the CPAC for keeping Ma'alai and Mauka open space. And it's going to be, and that is like tenfold more important after seeing what happened in Lahaina. Because that same scenario could happen if we tried to build housing there, which would be very tragic. And also I understand there's a proposal to put in some new condos. I'd like to see no additional short-term rentals in the Ma'alai area. This is something that the council worked on when I was on the council. allowing the Maui Ocean Center Marine Institute to go forward with seeking their SMA. They're just making sure that they were not planning any short-term rentals. So that was a real concern of the council back then. The second thing under item C is I want to just support Doug and Maui Tomorrow and John, who gave testimony asking that the area known as Pi'ilani Promenade be put back into residential. Residential will allow a little bit of neighborhood commercial, which I think is appropriate, but I was in the meeting at the Land Use Commission when 35 plus of us from our community went down there and testified against the mega mall, and we were actually heard by the Land Use Commission, so I really appreciate that. I'm hoping you folks can take another look at that. And then on the McKenna issue, thank you to the group that's asking that property be put back in agriculture, but this is really not the venue to be making changes outside the urban growth boundary. So I want to just reiterate the process for changes outside the urban growth boundaries to go back to the council and ask for a change in the Maui Island plan. That is and I don't even know, I think Lucienne might have brought it up, I don't even know if it's legal for you to make those changes within the, or outside of the urban growth boundary, because that was the purview of the Maui Island plan. And that's the process for that. Then lastly, under C, I wanted to thank Christian Chan for creating a public venue to talk about his property in the central or south area of Kihei, to give the public a chance to directly input on what we'd like to see there. I will hopefully be there in person tomorrow at that meeting. So that's my verbiage for section C. And then under D, I know you may not even get to it today, but in your land use designations, I wanted to reiterate what I've said before, which is that the land use designations do not have to be consistent with any other community plan. I asked this question at least a half a dozen times when we were reviewing the West Maui community plan, and was told in no uncertain terms by the planning department that no, there doesn't have to be consistency across every community. In the South Maui community can do what we want to do for our community, and so please don't be intimidated by the planning department trying to make everything consistent and equal from one community to the other. Our communities are very different. I also think that there's going to be probably some changes coming up for the West Maui plan now that they have a very public engagement process for moving forward to rebuild, and some of those things in that plan may change as well with the public, maybe even land designations. So I think that's all my testimony. Wanted to thank everybody who came out today to stand up for the community and work on our look at our plan as something that is for the people who are here now. We do want future generations to have places to live, but also consider that there are several, I would say like half a dozen housing projects that are in the works right now that have yet to be built. And I would like to see Maui Lani built out and other communities get affordable housing, not try to put it all into South Maui. That's my testimony. Any questions?
Thank you. Any clarifying questions? Thank you. Next testifier, please.
The next testifier is Dick Mayer on agenda item B4, C2, and C5.
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Let me go over several items. With regard to B1, you have in there an item near the end that's complete mapping of the old plantation roads, etc. I would urge you to go much further than just say complete the mapping of it. I would actually establish those exit roads from South Maui and make sure that they have the proper entrances and ability for the people to get out of South Maui in case there's a disaster. Not just fire, but it could be flooding, it could be any of the other disasters that are out there, tsunami,
cetera. So right now it's a rather weak statement. It says complete mapping. I think you should go further on that one. Second item, something I mentioned earlier with regard to watershed management. I would urge you to put in your plan some kind of a warning system upcountry. I live upcountry, but I think that I see very often heavy rains, let's say at the Ulapalakua end or Central Kula or in Pukalani. Each of them deliver floodwaters to South Maui very rapidly, as you all will know. And I think what you need to do is establish some kind of a warning system in the gullies that would send a signal that would warn areas. And I think you should put that in your plan as something to get established to protect your community. Third item, I agree with Isaac Hall's recommendation about agriculture in that area. And as the former vice chair of the General Plan Advisory Committee for the whole Maui Island Plan, the boundary lines are meant to be maximum growth areas, not to be go beyond that. And therefore, I think it's very appropriate if you want to convert it to agriculture that you do it. You do not have to leave it in residential, and do not need to go to the council to make a change if the South Maui community would like to have that. Next item, with regard to McKenna, the C5 area, you have three areas marked in brown just south of where the old Prince Hotel was. And those areas are already built up, two of them are already built up with non-resort areas. The color of the map now indicates hotel resort type activities there. I think those should be probably put into something like multifamily or some other more appropriate thing, because they're already taken up with that, and I don't think you would want to have those eventually converted into further hotels and resorts at the south end of your one-lane, one highway cul-de-sac. And lastly, with regard to the Kihei Mauka area, I want to clarify something that was said several meetings ago by Rory Flampton, where he said the GPAC recommended that whole Kihei Mauka area. The GPAC actually did not recommend that. We recommended an area of development potentially, not actually required, but potentially at the upper end, close to that boundary line, but between that area and where now the Mega Mall area sits, was going to be a large green area, green belt. Now that whole area has been covered in on this map by either commercial or residential areas. There's enough land, 600 acres at the top up there, that would allow for roughly 2,000 plus houses. I don't think the traffic down below can handle it, and I really don't think you'll ever see a highway parallel to Pi'ilani Highway, Mauka, being built. So I would urge you to scale back that large Mauka area. That was not called for by the GPAC, and I don't think it's in the best interest of South Maui. And I thank you for the time.
Thank you. Any clarifying questions for the testifier? Lewa?
Aloha. I have a question in regards to, you said you don't think there will ever be a highway built, Mauka, and could you share why that is?
Because I think there are two major, and maybe even now 3 major highways that need to be built prior to that. All of them are going to be in the $100 million range. One, of course, is the Mauka Highway from the Pauli over to West Maui. They're going to have to move that highway not through Oluwalu, but Mauka, to avoid the sea level rise and tsunami danger, and to make sure that people in West Maui can get out. The second one, which has a high priority, is the Paia bypass road. They're going to be building a road, Mauka of Paia town, so that people in Haiku are not stranded out there trying to get through the narrow bottleneck in Paia. Those two will be built probably over the next 20 years, and probably will take all the money that we can get, and I don't even think those will necessarily get finished. And only way down the road would be a Mauka alignment for South Maui, long after this plan's 20-year period has run. So to put any housing in before that would be a real threat to the community, because all of the traffic from all those 1,250 units in the research and tech park, and now this massive area in Kihei Mauka, will all come down to Pi'ilani Highway, and you've also got the potential for traffic from the Mega Mall site. So I think you will not see a highway Mauka, even though you may need one and you may want one in South Maui.
Thank you.
Question from Daniel.
Aloha, Dick. This is Daniel Conhaley. So you mentioned there were 3 projects potentially ahead of Mauka Road, Mauka Pi'ilani Highway, but I only heard 2. I heard the Mauka Road, Mauka of the Pali going to Lahaina.
Yes.
The other one
The
was
third
the
one-
Paia Day bypass, and what was the third one?
The third one, now that there's been this massive fire in Lahaina, I'm guessing that the county will be using the land above the Lahaina Civic Center, which is there's 1,000 acres of land above the Civic Center that is right before they've already got their final EIS for that, and that's probably where a lot of the housing is going to go in West Maui. That's my opinion. And in order to make that all possible, the present Lahaina bypass, which stops the shopping centers there, and when it goes downhill there, will actually continue straight north to Kaanapali through that area to make that development possible. And I think that will become a very high priority highway. And thanks for asking. I forgot to mention it, but I listed the first 2. So each of these highways, and there's even the other one that I didn't mention, and that was where the tunnel is, of course, on the road to West Maui. That itself is like an hourglass. If traffic in West Maui builds up again, as it probably will, there will be a need probably for either another tunnel or something that goes over the hill to parallel the present highway there to make access to West Maui more available. Lastly, Pi'ilani Highway is that it cannot be widened anymore. Otherwise, it would have long ago been widened. They've just narrowed the lanes in Pi'ilani, so that's not an alternative for traffic.
Any other clarifying questions? Thank you. Next testifier, please.
The next testifier is Leahi Hall on item B5. Leahi, if you could unmute your camera and audio. Yeah, he seems to be having some trouble unmuting.
Sorry about that, you guys. Thank you so much for your patience. I had to log back out and log in. Thanks, everyone, for your time. This is really short. I just wanted to support the testimony that Lena Olivetter provided on item B5. In specific, let's see, action added by CPAC 5.04A asterisk, especially with regard to number 1, Palauea Cultural Preserve, and then number 8, the Grand Wailea Burial Preserve. As Lena Ala shared previously, these sites are already protected by preservation plans or burial plans, and it's not appropriate for the burial site. That's not intended. It shouldn't be something that's available for public. And so I would encourage you folks, if at all possible, to remove listing of that site there as a part of this grouping of sites that are being recommended. So that's to one testimony just to support what Lena Ala has shared. And then the second part is to note that these sites have preservation plans in place, number 1 and number 8, and number 8 shouldn't be listed as public information. Mahalo. And thank you guys for your time. Super appreciate the diligence that everyone has put into this.
Thank you. Any clarifying questions? Daniel?
Aloha Leahi. Can you hear me? Okay. So, yeah, we haven't reviewed that list yet. Hopefully we'll get a chance to review it, but I was wondering if you could submit something in writing to the CPAC as far as your recommendations that you and Lena Ala shared in your testimonies. That would be helpful if we could see something in writing. Sometimes it's hard to remember when, you know, we hear it, and it's easier if we see it. So if you could do that, we'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I super appreciate the opportunity to testify here, and thank you for that recommendation.
Thank you. Any further clarifying questions? Okay, next testifier.
The next testifier is Rob Cole for item C5.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much for allowing me to testify tonight. Thank you all for volunteering. I'm not sure if my video is coming up, but anyhow, I'm just here to testify, to put a couple things on the record. I want to thank the department and thank the CPAC. I know a couple weeks, probably 3 weeks ago, we took up some of the mapping in Lahaina, and I wasn't able to hear or understand or interject regarding a property at 7,000 McKenna Road. And I believe at the time the department had put in some information that the property was zoned or designated by the state as part rural, part conservation. And we've since met up with the department here and confirmed with the state that it was 100% rural. And it is my understanding that the county has amended your map for tonight for approval to show that it is 100% rural with a corresponding 100% rural proposed community plan designation of rural residential. Please correct me if I'm wrong, and I'll be here for the remainder should anyone have a question.
Thank you. Any clarifying questions? Thank you. Next testifier.
As of right now, there is no one who wishes to testify at this time.
Do we have anyone in the audience who would like to testify at this time?
Good evening. My name is Linda Duncan. I live in central Kihei, very near Foodland, right in the middle of town. And I would like to say I'm opposed to having a large mall and commercial development authorized or accepted. I'd like to see that land be changed back or not changed from the rural residential or for the residential potential it has right now. I even think that that is too much for the area. We are really impacted by the traffic. I think that to develop that commercially will impact all of the local businesses that are struggling, and I don't think it's in the best interest of Maui and the residents and the people that do live here and intend to continue to live here. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. And any clarifying questions? Okay, next testifier, please.
I didn't quite understand what you said. Hi, my name is Stephanie Musback, and I live in central Maui near Foodland. And there's two things that I would like to speak to. One of them is that we don't need any more commercial malls, stores, things to attract tourists to go shopping. We need to have residents that people in our community can afford to live in so that they have a place to live. And we already have enough commercial property that's sitting empty and that doesn't have anyone in it. I mean, let's just look at Kahului and look at Lowe's, and how long has that building been empty? And look at that mall. And it's in an area where there's a lot of people and a lot of empty buildings, and you go in there and it's very sad. But no one's moved into those big buildings. Thank God U-Haul came and took over Kmart. because otherwise Kmart would be completely empty as it was for a very long time. And it would be very sad to see the land in Kihei used to cause other properties to become empty. One of the things that we do need, and I'm not quite sure if it's on this agenda, I believe that it is the northwest or the southwest connector route would be a huge asset to Kihei in order for there to be another way to get from one end of town to the other. And it is in the plan. And they talk about, there's a piece of it that's supposed to be completed for the high school. In that area of the high school, there's a new segment that I believe takes it from Safeway down north. But it also needs to go south, and I think that should be a priority of where to spend money, because that moves the people in Kihei around. You're talking about building another highway. The north-south connector route would be huge asset, and it's already mapped out, and the land is already there, and there's so many pieces that it would connect right behind my house and take me all the way to Lipoa if you just put in this little stretch that's about, maybe it's a mile long, that would go from Foodland all the way to Lipoa. It just has to cross over to the park, and that's almost done, and go by the senior housing. There's one piece that only needs to be paved because it's already there, and that's moving people. Yet we added 112 hotel rooms at the Maui Coast Hotel, which will add 112 cars a day on South Kihei Road, which if you stack them all up in a line, it creates over 1.5 miles. 112 cars, you put them in a row and you put them on the road. That's gonna work real well for North Kihei Road. So we need to move the people around. We don't need another mall. Please, please, no malls.
Thank you. Any clarifying questions? Daniel?
Oh, I just wanted to ask the testifier. I got the first name Stephanie, but I didn't get your last name. Must, how you spell it? Thank you.
Online. Okay, next testifier, please. We have a testifier.
I signed up. Do I wait for you to call me?
You can go first then. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. You want me to go? Yes. Okay. Still too high. Thank you. Hi. Ms. Clara Pana from Wailuku. I would like to testify about the mega mall. I'd like to say that you should have the smallest possible zoning you can there. One, because you're still taking the water from where I live, and you have no permission to do that. You impair our ahupua'a, as well as anybody else who's gonna have to give water to South Maui. So keep it as small as you can. Second, I like to say that I've walked that land for many years, and when it rains, it looks like it floods there, and many different streams of water come through. And for many years, I and Vernon Kalanikau have talked about the movement of the mo'o and the importance of the mo'o there. And I do not believe having the ability to put a shopping center is the way to honor that. And third, you have never been there to experience this land. I have experienced it on the full moon, where it is an extraordinary area to view the moon from. And that is one of the purposes of this land, which comes under the family of Hewa Hewa. And you have never seen in the pohaku, when you put the water in the pohaku and the sun comes up to noon and you see the face of the person looking up. You've never seen that. You get to vote on this. You don't know this land. You don't know what is here. You don't know what is going to be lost. If you make it a shopping mall, a residential area is bad enough because it is not preserving all that is there and all that the land is. My friend Sally lived up in Ulupalakua, and when we went there the first time, she said, I've been here before. This is where the people gather. So we walk down from Ulupalakua, the people from South Maui, Kihei come here, and we sit on these rocks and we talk. This is the gathering place. So you get to vote on this. You get to make a decision. But do you know this land? I think not. Keep it as small as you can and give it the least amount of change because it is a tremendous place. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any clarifying questions to testifier? Thank you. And then we have Albert online.
Yes, we have two online testifiers, and the first is Albert.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for your service. Albert Perez, I'm with Maui Foundation. I wanted to dive here now. So, development of Pi'ilani Highway would generate lots of traffic in North Kihei. Everyone else who's headed further south, all the way to McKenna, will have to pass through that traffic. There should be no additional traffic generating development in North Kihei, especially with the Pi'ilani Promenade, the mall, between the Shell Station and the high school. The commercial development is going to generate a lot more traffic than the residential would. So please change the designation back to residential instead of small town center, which would allow a higher concentration of commercial development. South Maui's people spent over a decade fighting against that mega mall project. We don't need more commercial space, and adding it here would pull business away from stores that are already struggling in other parts of today. When these stores suffer, it can contribute to neighborhood decline like we see in it would make much more sense to put truly affordable housing in this area near the new high school. So please change that back to residential. And with regard to Kihei-Mauka, we need to be clear that the current county drainage standards are extremely inadequate. More development using those standards will make flooding worse, not better, in the area of Kihei that already experiences the worst flooding of all. With regard to settlements, it's important to include things in plans, especially when the county is a party to these settlements. The public needs to know what the community groups have achieved so that they will be enforceable by the county as well as by the parties to the settlements. For example, our settlement in McKenna Resort, there are over 600 acres to be constructed using permaculture design principles designed to infiltrate most of the drainage into the aquifer and keep it from polluting offshore waters. This is an example of how development should be done in the future, and we would like it to be incorporated by reference in this community plan. One comment about the Maui Island Plan: the main purpose is to adopt a directed growth strategy that concentrates growth in certain areas instead of allowing sprawl and preserve space that is part of what makes Maui so beautiful. The Maui Island Plan is a well-suited and comprehensive. Changing part of it here or there, like the urban or rural growth boundaries, would be inconsistent with the rest of the plan. So I urge you to respect existing urban and rural growth boundaries. Mahalo.
Any clarifying questions? Thank you. Next testifier, please.
The final testifier we have online is CJ for agenda item B5. CJ, if you could unmute your video and audio, please.
Sorry, phones are tricky. I was really thankful to have the in-person meetings and be able to show up for those. For B5, I just wanted to support everything that Lena Olivetter said, and also what Leahi Hall spoke to too. And it was asked that it get it's written down, a written statement gets sent in. I support all of that. And I really just wanted to thank you guys, CPAC, like really thank you guys. Not just say thank you, because I'm witnessing now, and I understand now why it was so important to have this. It's down there, but seems like everybody's coming out of the woodwork. There's a lot of people that aren't caught up to all the meetings that we've already been having. So thank you for making it virtual again, and really thank you, CPAC, for listening to everybody. So we've already moved past a lot of the items. So yeah, mahalo.
Thank you. Any clarifying questions? Thank you. And are there any more testifiers, either online or in the room?
There are no more testifiers online at this time.
Okay. And no one else who wants to testify on item B, the action review?
For item B, we do have one testifier.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so the testifier for item B is Robin Knox.
Good evening, CPAC, and thank you for the virtual testimony option. It's really helpful. I want to concur with the items in there, like completing the Greenway or the North-South Collector Roads, Amalka Road, and especially the Keolia Pond bypass and use of North Kihei Road for more recreational use, bikes and walking path, because it is destined to not be an automotive pathway in the future. Related to that, why was section 1.06 on sea level rise adaptation deleted? I do object to that. I hope that that just got moved to a different location, but I'm not really clear on that. 1.08 about the transportation demand management strategies of the MPO. It seems like a kind of like general statement that you're making there, and I'm not sure that, I know I'm not familiar with that, and I'm not sure if our community is, so perhaps that could be made more specific so that we understand what that means. And then on 1.15 about the buses, I think we need more frequent bus routes. Like if we could have just a shuttle on South Kihei Road that would come by more than once an hour, I think it could help cut down a lot of traffic and have a lot of convenience for visitors and residents alike. Moving on to point 4, on item 4.06 under runoff and drainage, while I do support use of actions like feral ungulate fencing and invasive species control and management, I think there are, other things as well. So I'm concerned that by calling those out, that it may deprioritize other things like restoration of soils and hydrology using permaculture solutions. I support 406A through F, really good things that you added with regard to runoff and drainage, watershed management, and wetlands. I did have a concern about 412B, about use of R1 water. This is very specific to using it for access steer damage, recharging depleted aquifers, and forage for livestock. I think that it should be more general, that we use R1 for restorative or regenerative projects. I think there's a lot of discussion that needs to be done with the community. That is our water. That is a valuable freshwater resource. And I don't know that it's a foregone conclusion of the community that we would want it to be used for livestock forage. You know, I think that just merits a lot of discussion. So I would like to see that more generally stated, just to say accelerate funding for R1 reuse on the landscape
3 minutes.
for restorative and regenerative
3 minutes.
purposes. Okay, thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Any clarifying questions? Any other testifiers? Oh, any other testifiers?
Online.
No further testifiers online?
No more testifiers online.
Okay. Calling testimony closed on item B, and we'll take a 10-minute break. Okay, restarting the meeting at 7:01 p.m. And we have item B, final review of actions. I suggest that we start with the proposals by Brian and Gary, since we have them in writing.
Chair, point of order. I would like to thank the planning department for getting us virtual online testimony. And Jackie's here, okay. And maybe explain who is doing it. How does this we got some new people and I don't know who they are. Be nice to maybe recognize them. Thank you.
He wants to know who's doing the virtual participation.
So we're working with Akaku staff. Yeah.
Okay, well, great. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, so can we start with Brian's action proposals? So you know the procedure. Someone needs to make a motion and someone needs to second it.
Since nobody else is making a motion, I move to accept all of the actions that were proposed in the agenda item B, final review of actions, C, review of CPAC recommended map with updated land use designations that was issued on October 2nd.
Is there a second? Second by Jennifer. Discussion?
I'd just like to make a friendly amendment to my own motion, which would be on 2.2, the second item, which is design and implement the expansion of Kilauea Park. I would like to add fund, design, and implement.
Discussion?
One thing, you cannot adopt the land use designations because that you're not to that agenda item yet.
Okay. And one of those a question anyways.
Okay. And some of these are already in the works, and other ones might be more appropriate as policies.
Such as?
Okay, let's see. Fund and hire staff to investigate and conduct random spot checks to permanently eliminate short-term rentals. There's a contractor who's searching ads, and there's a team that is already working on that in the county. There was a gap in that, but that is once again happening. Let's see.
So would the recommendation be that it would be expand that program?
To expand. Yeah, if you want to keep it to expand. The one, fund, hire, and implement a natural resource department to proactively inspect compliance of policies and actions. If it is, it seems like it's more the purview of DLNR, or is it for county properties? I'm not sure I understand the purpose of this action.
The action would be for county to do enforcement around, for an example, that fire breaks are put in place, that gulches have been cleaned. So it's not a DLNR, it's more county-based.
So this would be the planning department that would, you just want better enforcement of the planning department's of plans?
The idea wasn't necessarily plans, it would be more that, I think last week we adopted that fire breaks need to be put in. Who's going to check? Planning's not gonna go check to see that the fire breaks are put in place. So it's the enforcement and then the follow through, that if they've not been followed through,
Excuse
they're not
me?
compliant.
Oh,
Yep.
So last week there was a town hall, and Bill Snipes behind the cameraman conducted the meeting on behalf of Tom Cook. But Chief Ventura was explaining from the fire department that they do have a team of inspectors, well, 12 of them, not many for the entire county, but they do that function already. You can call and they can come and check out properties, and if a property is not compliant, they can issue notices of warning. So perhaps for fire department, that's already in existence. And then if you're talking about parks, there's already parks enforcement staff too.
So just on the fire breaks, I listened to the call as well, and the reason I put that action in was that I don't believe it should be citizens that acknowledge in contact to say there's an issue. We should have someone going investigating and checking on it. As individuals, we shouldn't have to contact. There's just somebody within the county that's going and checking and enforcing and making sure that it's happening, and not relying on citizens, in my opinion.
Yeah, you know, that's actually a good comment that came up at the end of the meeting, because they talked about artificial intelligence, and he said until that gets more used, that citizens are the best eyes and ears that we have out there. So they do rely heavily on us to call and report, because we can see way more than that they're able to, especially because they only have a team of 12. And I think that's kind of consistent throughout the county. Even with our inspectors, we rely on the citizens to inform us about things that we follow up on.
So looking at your previous action under 2.2, maybe fund and hire staff to investigate and conduct random spot checks and to proactively inspect compliance of policies and actions instead of.
I'm okay with the proposed language changes.
Further discussion?
Karen, could you just scroll up or down either way to get to 2.5? I just want to make sure that everyone sees the last proposed action. Well, yes, there's a couple more there.
Just a question. So the support and fund the extension of R1 lines to and beyond Wailea to reduce potable water usage. So that's an action that you want the county to be paying for?
I would say yes, but I didn't necessarily stipulate who should pay. Do we need to?
Actions or the county's paying for it?
I get that's up to this committee to decide if that's what they think is the best avenue.
Would encourage landowners of undeveloped parcels. Would that be better as a policy?
In retrospect, I agree.
You want to save that for when we're talking about policies again? Okay.
Daniel.
Does the county have can the county require the utilities to replace existing wood power poles with metal poles? Can they? Is that under their purview?
I'd say this should also be a policy as opposed to a action item.
Through the PUC. The county would have to advocate for that through the PUC, right? As well as anything else that is related to that utility that's on this list, right? So all through the PUC.
I just wanted to comment that some of these things might be better off in the hazard mitigation plan, not necessarily in a community advisory committee plan, because the county has a hazard mitigation plan that's put out by the Emergency Management Agency.
Along with that, I can't find it right now, the action about having the sirens go off or require sirens to be used for fire tsunamis, that's actually already in the works.
Chair.
Go ahead.
So, quick question, Karen. I understand that things may be in the works, but why would we still not want to include it in our community plan so that it's kind of embedded in there saying this is what our expectations are? Because things could fall off, people could change, departments change, priorities change. So in my mind, that's why I was suggesting that they go in so that the planning department is fully aware of what we would want to see, so that it doesn't necessarily fall off the table, even though it may be in the works. So if that's not appropriate, I'm okay, but that was my thinking of let's memorialize it if we think it's important and not leave it to chance that it either doesn't come to fruition or changes in some way. So.
Further discussion? Daniel?
Yeah, Chair, you could have 1 more minute.
There was also not actually a motion to remove the require all or a friendly amendment to remove the electrical transmission lines. I just struck them out because you guys were discussing it. So you'd have to make that friendly amendment.
Again, I was putting them in based on things that we were learning from Lahaina, and I understand that other plans may develop and change, but the idea was to put our thoughts as to how, as a community, we would want response and actions to be taken. So if it's not the appropriate place, or if we have to change the language to reference that that's our desire and it goes through a different process, I guess I would just ask to help what that language would be. But my preference would be is that we keep it in either its format or in a format that is more appropriate to call out these are the things that we would like to see. Again, if the committee agrees that they're appropriate, that we don't lose sight and just kind of have them go to a different department and maybe not follow through.
You could put a policy to say encourage all electrical transmission lines, because it is a different body's purview to decide what gets done, but you can say you want it encouraged. These aren't really actions because we can't tell the county to do it. It's not, the county's not the one who's going to pay for it. But they can be action or policies if you'd like to, and there will be one more chance to visit policies, just a short list, just quick as can be.
Well, if we talk about it tonight, we all agree it should be a policy, then it should be quick. So if your recommendation is that it gets created as a policy, then I'm fine with removing it and moving it to policies in a language that is appropriate.
Jennifer, too?
Maybe the require utilities to be powered off, work with the utilities to ensure they have protocols to turn it off. Have to think about who's going to work with them, though.
Go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, there's the third from the bottom of the first page. Define and implement protocols to provide access to all private roads during emergency evacuations. And this kind of made me think about what Dick Mayer said in his testimony about establishing exit roads from South Maui. I think that fits into what Brian is saying here, that there has to be, it has to be something that's already planned and can accommodate traffic going up those roads. You just can't open up the roads and then start sending cars up there. Because in some cases, if the road isn't well defined, they're going to get lost if it's at night. you know, they has to be clearly defined exit roads. So somehow I think I'd like to combine that with what Brian is trying to do here.
I agree that was the intent. If there's other language that we think is clearer, that I'm happy to modify it, but that was the intent of have it defined, available protocols are in place so that as individuals we would know what to do, where to go, and how to do it.
Yeah. And it would be have to be something that works. I mean, that's been tried and tested. So we know when we have an emergency, the roads will work and accommodate it. Something, I don't know the language for it, but something along that line.
How about the language that is currently added to the plan? Identify areas where impediments need to be removed for emergency evacuation routes out of areas with limited and restricted egress. Develop a plan for implementation in case of an emergency.
I looked at that. I didn't think, in my opinion, that it covered what I was trying to accomplish. That was more, if I recall correctly, that was more removing some of the barriers that are like in South Kihei. They're blocking some of the roads during an emergency. This would be more Malka of getting us out, not necessarily the stuff that's kind of down in the.
Maybe, this chair, if I may, maybe what CJ testified about the previous meeting, that there are ways to get out, right? That ranch roads, state roads, roads that are on state land and ranch land, that he says we can use to get out. And there are several of those. So I think that's what I have in my mind is using those as exit roads. That was my thought. A protocol or plan in place to do that, tried and test it.
So what's the resolution? Are you sticking with the proposal?
Dan, do you think the language needs to be modified? Because I think you and I are on the same page of what we're trying to accomplish. And I guess I would ask planning if you have a recommendation, if you think it should be changed in some way to make it clearer.
I did actually think this was the same as what was said in the other policy. So maybe saying something, adding to the other policy, just to say including, defining, and implementing protocols, like put this in the other action, sorry, not policy, so that it's all in one place, not like two separate kind of similar actions.
Can you remind me which action that was so I can look at it to see if we can modify the language?
I can in a little bit.
So while she's looking at that, Brian, I was thinking, what about define and implement protocols to establish exit roads from South Maui using private roads during emergency evacuations, like ranch roads, something along those lines.
I'm fine with that change.
Okay, you ready? Define and implement protocols to establish exit roads from South Maui using private roads during emergency evacuations. Something like that.
I will say in my mind that's more limited than what Brian had before. This is saying you're going to select the roads instead of have them all available.
It's a lemon. Let's lemonade it. I don't know. I mean, that's the intent I see. You know, so I'm fine with Brian's language if his intent, and that's if we understand it that way. And I sense Karen wants to include that in the existing language. But I'm fine with the.
Yeah, so we're looking at 3.13 and 3.13a. That would be added in.
I see. Maybe we can plug the language in there.
Chair.
Go ahead.
It may fit better in 3.13 versus the 3.13a, because I think we added 3.13a more for the South Kihei barriers removal, not as an exit strategy, but it was literally like move the big blocks. So I think if we want to incorporate what I was suggesting, I think it would probably be more appropriate with 3.13. So I guess planning, would it be best for us to remove it from this recommendation for this motion and then make another motion to amend 3.13?
That'd probably be cleaner, but.
Let's stay clean. So I'd say we can strike it from here and modify 3.13 once this motion's done.
Any further discussion on this proposal? Not 3.13 yet. Daniel? Yeah. Okay, what? The motion is the actions in the document minus the things we said would go to policies and minus the support and fund the extension of R1 lines.
So the other item is to clarify the second from the bottom on the back page under land use designations. Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. That clarified my question.
Just the actions, ma'am. Further discussion? Any objections to adopting the proposals as modified, as shown on the screen?
Are you done modifying, Karen?
Putting notes for myself.
Oh, okay. Can we just see it? You know what the modified version? At least read it real quick.
You wanted that to say expand, yeah, Brian? Did you make that friendly amendment?
Correct.
Yeah, Chair. Brian, just let us know when you're good.
I am good.
Okay, any further discussion? Any objections? Okay, fine, we've adopted this document unanimously. And then we go on to Gary's proposal. Or actually, I'm sorry, why don't we finish up since we decided to transfer one of these to 3.13, why don't we do that one so get it all in one place. So adding the support and fund the extension of R1 lines to 3.13.
I'd like to make a motion to amend action 3.13 to utilize the language being define and implement protocols, provide. I can't read my chicken scratch. What was the part you added, Daniel? Jenny, could you use the microphone? So it was define and implement protocols to provide exit road access to all private roads during emergency evacuations, I believe. And provide multi-channel communication for all exit strategies.
Yes.
And if that doesn't make any sense, I can reword it.
Second by Jennifer? Or? Okay. Discussion?
Is it up there?
It's highlighted, but it is crossed out. I
Oh,
would have
that's
to
what's
retype it.
throwing me. You got it crossed out. Can you uncross it?
Discussion? Any objections? Finally adopted the modified 3.13 unanimously. Okay, now on to Gary's proposals.
Good evening. I'd like to amend 2.14, adding 2 additional sections as I've provided in the member submission for tonight's meeting.
Are you making a motion on these 2.14F and 2.14G?
Yes.
Is there a second? Second by 2.14F, but not 2.14G? Okay. Why don't we discuss 2.14F then, and then move on?
So we'll
I'm sorry, did you seconded 2.14G or 14F? F, okay. Let's discuss F then.
Good evening. So the concept behind F is to ask the county to focus additional resources on ADU building, as it's, as I think probably a lot of folks know, it's probably recognized throughout most of the United States as the fastest way to get affordable housing and low-cost housing into communities, because it builds on the infrastructure that already exists, the waste, electrical and water systems, by adding additional bedrooms basically to communities. So I'd like to suggest that that would be something we should ask the county to facilitate, and we should support in the Kihei community.
Lehua.
Or maybe it's more of a comment, but isn't there an existing program? I think there's even like a grant or something that they have. I think they said for certain square footage lots that they're able to add on accessory dwellings. Is this similar to it?
Yes, in 2019, the County Council approved a second ADU for properties of greater than 7,500 square feet. That program has not really had much adaptation, and largely because the permit processing time, the cost of the of going through that process is so significant that a lot of smaller, less well-to-do families have basically said, you know, we would do this, but we can't afford to do this. So what this action is to ask the county to facilitate, expedite approvals, and incentivize residential owners to do that. So it's basically a helping hand to get those built in the community.
That's what I mean. I mean, I like the idea, but there is something, and I just put something up for my friend when I told her about the program, and it's very recent that it's on the county website. So I just want to say that I support this, but I just want to mention that there is something that's current, and I think there is some type of funding that would assist people with this. So I don't know if, I mean, I could actually pull it up quickly, but I like the idea, I love the idea, but I don't know if it would, you know, be either piggybacking on what currently exists, or like you said, maybe that one was a little bit more stringent. But I definitely support it, but I just wanted to mention that there is something similar, so thank you.
Further discussion? Daniel?
I'm sorry. I don't know what ADU means.
I'm sorry. For most of us for most folks that have lived in Hawaii for a long time, it's the concept of an ohana, and they can be attached, added to the square footage of your current house, or it's square footage that could be added as an additional structure on the property itself. And so a lot of, you know,
I just meant the acronym. Now I heard Jen say it means additional units.
Means accessory dwelling unit.
Accessory dwellings.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to know.
Okay.
Thanks, Gary.
Answered the wrong answer.
Further discussion? Any objections? Okay, I've adopted 2.14F. I suggest you can now make a motion separately on the next one then.
I'd like to make an additional motion to amend section goal 2.2 and add an additional action 2.14G to the CPAC plan.
Is there a second? Second by Daniel. Okay. Discussion?
So the principle behind this is that the South Maui Planning Commission Advisory Committee, which I'm sure some of you are familiar with, is a committee that is created by an ordinance by the county council, and the intent of that committee, in my understanding, is that it's to represent the voice of the community of Kihei, or of South Maui. The committee has, to my understanding, has not been invited to review any or very few of the actions that the Maui Planning Commission has taken that's relevant to the community of Kihei. This concerns me and makes me feel like we should ask for the county to be more diligent and to require the Planning Commission to provide access to those projects of greater than 4 lots. That doesn't need to be done on every single, you know, thing that comes through, but that the South Maui Planning Commission Advisory Committee would have a chance to take a look at those projects and be able to look at them in the context of the this community plan that we've worked so hard to put in place, as well as the project design guidelines and road design guidelines, which KCA has worked on for many, many, many years. So that's really, I'm just trying to get our local community more opportunity to actually have an opportunity to take a look at these projects before they go before the MPC.
Okay, I have two comments. The first one is this is more of a policy because it's what would be looked at when people are looking at plans. But it is also subdivisions are the purview of DPW, not of the planning department. So they're not going to go before the Maui Planning Commission unless they're in the SMA, which is the special management area, which is a lot of Kihei. But that's maybe projects that come before the Planning Commission, but not all subdivisions go before the Maui Planning Commission.
I really, maybe that's a bad choice of words. I wasn't really focusing on the subdivisions as much as focusing on all projects in the South Maui area that come before MPC, asking that those projects, and I was trying to, where I used the subdivision for 4 was to say I don't think if it's a single unit project or a single property item that's going before the MPC, that wouldn't necessarily have to be sent to the South Maui Advisory Committee. I was trying to not have absolutely everything come through because I thought that would just bog down the process and essentially hurt the small owner builder projects that were going through the MPC.
What about putting in courage and taking out the or subdivision and projects, but it would be a policy, so we can also rework the language before next week.
I'm happy with that as a policy.
Chair.
Brian?
I would propose, if we're going to be rewriting the language, that we remove the specifications of KCA because WCA has their own policies and guidelines and rules. So it would be to the, and Malaya, I'm sure, has their own set of guidelines and rules for design. So I think it would be to the appropriate subdivision or whatever the appropriate language would be, but it would be to the respective area to follow their design plans and guidelines.
Totally agree. I'll accept that.
So that would be a friendly amendment. Although it's being rewritten, so it's really not an amendment.
Yes, when we have it, I'm in agreement of that.
Thanks.
Everett?
Well, Kieran and Brad both hit 2 of my points. my third point is this requires everything to go to the Planning Commission. And it just adds expense, it adds time, it bogs down the Planning Commission, it bogs down the planning staff, it bogs down Corp Council. And I just think it's unnecessary.
If it, the intention of this was not to add anything to the Planning Commission that it wasn't already doing it. This is only to take those things which would go to the Planning Commission.
So you're limiting it just to SMA then?
Just anything from, here's conceptually what I was hoping for. Anything that goes to the Maui Planning Commission that's relevant to South Maui and its districts, including Kihei, would have an above a certain size, and I happened to pick 4-unit subdivisions, but that was just to have, just so that not minutia didn't come through, those would be referred to the South Maui Planning Commission Advisory Committee for review and then sent to the MPC. So it's a narrow subset of those things.
I think it's a really, really big subset. I think it's a huge net, and I think it would I'm going to vote against it because I think it's just going to slow things down, add expense, make housing harder to develop, and I think it's unnecessary.
We can review that when it comes up, I guess. Okay, so we have covered the submitted proposed actions. Does anyone have any additional actions to propose or changes to existing actions? Daniel?
Yes.
Imagine
So 1.03. If you can pull that up in cinematic color. Okay, so this one has bugged me because it's sort of like spaghetti. And as far as the sections in their order, I'd like to see the sections of the north-south collector road recommended to be completed, put in an order from south to north, rather than just kind of skipping around. So what I'm proposing is to increase mobility options and reduce congestion in South Maui, complete the construction on the Kihei north-south collector roads and multi-use paths, including the sections between, and I want it to begin from the southernmost between Kanani Auhana roads and Liloa Drive. So that goes first. Okay, so Kanani Auhana roads to Liloa. So Liloa will hit East Wilaka'au. So the next section be East Wilaka'au Road and Haliku'ai. So, yeah, that would be the next. Okay. And then the last section would be and Kaono'ulu Road to North Kihei Road. So I'm just rearranging the order, that's all I'm doing.
Is there a second? Second by Everett, okay.
Okay, so
Discussion.
including the sections between yeah, get rid of this between Kanani, including the sections between Kanani and Kanani Auhana roads. I would say and Liloa Drive to be consistent with the others. Between Kanani Auhana roads and Liloa. And okay. The next East Wilaka'au Road and Haliku'ai Street and Kaono'ulu Road to North Kihei Road. And wait. No, yeah. Well, I think you see what I'm trying to do, right? And Karen can make it look nice. That's my motion.
Discussion. Question, Lehua?
So in regards to the proposal, what is the reason for it to be this way? Just curious.
Because it's in order from beginning south, going all the way north to North Kihei Road. That's the reason. You could do it south, but I'm just choosing to go from south to north.
The only reason I asked is if there's any parts of the road that have started, would be quicker to be done if you had started in another area. And then just trying to visualize the usage for kids walking on the road more towards the probably Liloa down to, going towards the youth center side, because we have kids walking in that area. So I was just curious. Yeah. Does anybody know if there's any part that kind of is maybe quarter way done, or what's the status?
I don't think the objective was to prioritize the construction in this order. I think it was just to list all the parts that need to be done, but not to prioritize any particular segment.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. So that Tova kind of whispered that, but okay, so now it makes sense, because I'm just trying to understand.
I like this organization more because it's just easier. I can follow it easier now.
Yeah, for visualization. Yep. So yeah, okay, good, thank you.
Question: where's Auhana Road? So go Kanani, and then we coming north, and then gonna get Auhana.
Yeah, Kanani, we're across from the police station. When you come down Kanani, if you make a right instead of going left, if you go left, you get on Kanakanui.
Yep.
But if you make a right, that's Auhana.
And then
that goes all the way down to South Kihei Road. It's named after a Chinese family that lived in the area.
Yeah. And
related to the Akina family. There you go.
Yeah.
It's named after them.
So after Auhana, should it be East Welakahau Road and Halikuai Street, then Liloa? I mean, to me, no matter. I get them, but just the sequence. Then the other thing is North Kihei, Kaonaulu Street. Then we're going to finish at Oahu or North Kihei side. And then I don't know if Everett or planning would know this, but when the mayor, when the budget is set, or maybe planning department know, or public works should know, I got the impression that the work can be done by Kaonaulu Road to Waipuilani. Unless the project might go start this side. I didn't get the impression that it was going to be the whole thing. So.
Yeah, I'm not changing any language. I'm just rearranging it. The language that was already there.
Yeah, no,
but
this is good.
The section that's supposed to be completed next is from East Waipuilani to Kulani Hakoi. That's the next one.
Okay.
Further discussion? Any objections? Okay, adopt the change to 1.03. Any other new actions or changes to existing actions?
Chair, there was something said in public testimony that I made a note on that I thought it might be good to include, but I'm just looking for that notation.
Do you remember who made the suggestion?
I don't remember who made it, but I found it. I was public transit 1.15, and the testifier, can't remember who it was, talked about also not only additional bus routes, but more frequent. Yes, the word somewhere more frequent has to be put in there. So it comes more frequently, instead of like once an hour. So I just want to find a place to put more frequent in there, because I thought that was a good addition to the language.
Is there a second? Second by Mike.
Yeah, additional bus routes, stops, transit sorts to increase uses. So where would I put more frequent? Additional and more frequent. You don't want additional bus routes, but more frequent. Sorry, what is it? Oh, okay. More frequent service. That's what we're getting at. Implement additional bus routes and more frequent service. More. I'm sure it's a bit. Thank you, Tova. This kind of can't think of the right word. I know we have an English major in here. Somewhere.
How about just adding more frequent instead of transit services? Implement additional bus routes, stops, and more frequent transit services.
Okay, Mike? Mike, okay? Okay. Discussion? Any objections? Okay, I've adopted the change to 1.15. Any additional changes?
Chair, are we doing priorities too right now?
How are we going to deal with priorities of the new actions?
There are actions that don't have priorities.
Earlier this week, we sent out an email with the ranking of the actions, how you guys had originally ranked them. To have everything high in the plan is not beneficial, is all that does is say that the county gets to decide. I would recommend reviewing that and just assigning them based on what you guys all agreed, how it kind of the voting went.
I missed that. Did anybody else get that?
Okay.
Who didn't get it? I don't remember getting it.
Did anyone get it? Okay, I'll make sure I resend that email and I will post it.
Chair.
Okay, Brian.
So, Karen, will that list, when you resend it, have the new actions that we've approved tonight, and then we'll have to rank those and send those to planning?
I'm not going to promise that right now. Let me see what can be done tomorrow. It would probably be a separate ranking.
Okay.
Any additional actions or changes? Daniel?
Chair.
Okay, Gary.
I have a quick comment on that. Since we've added a lot of additional actions and we've made a lot of changes, some of which have happened after I got here, a lot of it before, would it make sense to essentially have the current committee go through and essentially rank everything, again, in context of all of these actions?
I think that would be overly time consuming. It's a good suggestion, but it would probably take a long time. I think it would be better if we send the list, and anything you disagree with, there's a motion to change where we're saying it should go. It will be more efficient.
Daniel?
So there was a change recommended by a testifier, I believe that was Robin Knox, on added by GPAC 4.12b. 4.12b. Yeah, accelerate funding for R1 reuse on the landscape to mitigate access deer damage, recharge depleted aquifers, and provide forage for livestock, local food security. And she thought that it should be more general rather than as specific as it is. She suggested something like reuse for like restorative and regenerative projects. I don't know if that would include all of these, but for you folks that work in that area. So the language she recommended was restorative and regenerative projects, rather than calling out everything. She thought it would be limited. The R1 water would be limited to those purposes, but it should be more general to include other purposes.
How about 3.17? I mean, we do have. So I mean, yeah, here we're talking about one use, and on 3.17 we're talking about another use.
I think Brian suggested a really good language earlier too about taking it down to Wale or perhaps beyond for irrigation purposes.
I mean, I don't think we should be repeating over and over again when we already have identified and encouraged additional uses of recycled water, including but not limited to parks, golf courses, agriculture, and so on, so on, so on.
Okay, I'm looking at it wrong. Yeah, that captures a lot of things.
Everett?
There was some testimony tonight about 5.04a. There being preservation plans in place, preservation plans approved by SHPD in place for number 1, number 5, number 4, number 5, number 6, and number 8. And I would assume all of these are subject to preservation plans that have been approved by SHPD, but I know for a fact that 1, 4, 5, 6, and 8 either have burial plans or preservation plans in place. Burial plans approved by the Burial Commission are preservation plans approved by SHPD. And those preservation plans kind of spell out the permitted uses, and putting it in here that they're for visitation and education would be in conflict with some of the preservation plans and burial treatment plans.
So what's your motion?
My motion is that we delete number 1, 4, 5, 6.
Sorry, where are we, Everett?
We're on page 149. .5 and then 5.04a. Daniel, there are preservation plans or burial treatment plans. for these projects that spell out the how they're to be treated and respected.
So is there a second? Second by Jennifer. Okay, discussion.
Yeah, I'm trying to think that maybe the community plans often serve to memorialize actions. And sometimes having it in there, calling it out, does memorialize actions. So that's just a thought that's coming into my mind right now.
Maybe one way to, and I hear what you're saying. I agree with the intent of what you're saying. Maybe one way to address it is to say, instead of establishing cultural parks, preserves, heritage corridors for visitation and education, say respect and follow the approved burial treatment plans and approved preservation plans. Period. And that just covers all approved burial treatment plans and preservation plans. But it takes away the cultural parks, preserve, heritage corridors for visitation, education, because you don't want, I mean, a burial is not something you want visitors going by. I mean, it's just not appropriate. It's in violation of the burial treatment plans. That's family, and the preserves. Some of those preserves you just don't want them exposed to a lot of traffic because bad things tend to happen when that occurs. So they're approved plans. They've been vetted. They've gone through a consultation plan, and so I would, I think I would just say follow the respect and comply with approved archaeological preservation plans and burial treatment plans.
Chair. Yeah, I feel this is like an important section of the plan, and I just feel like I'd like more time to think about it. Because it's mentioned in the plan does not mean that the actual locations of these areas, like burials, are included, correct? But is that correct? We're not including locations. How to find...
I mean, some of these are pretty small. I mean, a burial can be a very small area. So if you put it in here, I just don't think it's appropriate to draw attention to them.
I'd like to hear what others have to say.
So this is from the McKenna families that testified, right? The testimonies, right? For Grand Wailea and Palawea.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So. So they protect it already. For me, if we put them in the community plan, then it opens opportunity for organization, nonprofits, families that not from here can come and do their candle vigils. They're going to come and do their powwow, whatever. They're going to come. They might use that area as leverage because they get access. So it's already protected. So Grand Wailea, the burials, it's there. It's in stone. I mean, families can go and visit. And it should just be left that way. I think we can have more discussion on this, even with others outside that want to chime in. But for me, you take your Iwi Kupuna Pau. We don't need go back. We don't need do the candle vigil, and especially it's not your ohana, and then people gonna come and use that for leverage for another parcel for settlements. It was even mentioned tonight from one kupuna that mentioned about this one good example, the mo'o. That's our family. That's our kuleana. But why she say that is for leverage, for Pilani Promenade. So we cannot have stuff like that. You know, that's our kuleana, that's our family thing, leave it alone. They use the mo'o for Grand Wailea to intervene in the case. That's our family mo'o. You know, do that, that's not their family mo'o. So these are the stuff that we gotta be tight and concerned about, because people will take people's history and story and their kuleana and then use them for something else. But I agree with Daniel, we can have more discussion on this. And it's a good thing, because people gotta be true, they gotta be honest, they gotta be forefront. And that's what we can do, is open that up for invitation. That's my comment.
So yeah, I did ask Leahi for her to send something in writing. That would be helpful for us to look at. Hopefully she'll send it in before our next meeting. And there are a couple guys missing tonight that I wish were here to kind of comment on this too. Cody and Kyoki. So I don't know, I feel like I need to kind of stew on it and come back.
So we do have a motion on the table. Further discussion? Was that? Kavika, okay, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm taking a little bit of clarification, probably from you, Daniel. So I think it doesn't make a lot of sense, what the language kind of says as far as encouraging cultural parks, preserves, and heritage corridors for vegetation and educational purposes as opportunity arise for future development, because I don't know if that's talking about cultural landscapes or some type of rehabilitation sites that you can kind of work to, I guess, enhance and touch on that educational component. But I do agree with what Everett has stated as far as the specific preserve that has accepted burial treatment and preservation plans are binding agreements and commitments by the landowner and any named cultural and or lineal descendants within those plans, and that's separate and beyond the scope of this community plan.
Further discussion?
Just a general comment. There's only 2 more weeks of CPAC, so decisions do have to be made.
Daniel?
My understanding is that it could be extended a little bit. It's not a hard deadline. Is that correct, Jackie?
We have we have an approval for a total of 1 year, and your first meeting was on October 19th. So we need to get done. We have planned a meeting for next week on the 11th. If we have to have a meeting on the 18th, we can do that. Beyond that, we don't have any plans for any further meetings. And so we really, really hope that we can be completed by the 18th. We need to be respectful of people's time. And, you know, the department very shortly will be pulled in a lot of different directions. And when, you know, with West Maui coming up, we're going to have to be involved in that community planning. And so we really need to get this wrapped up. And, yeah, we have, you know, if we need to have a meeting on the 18th, we can. Beyond that, I mean, I really, really hope that the group can complete and make its final recommendation on that day, if not on the 11th. Thank you.
So I think what I'm gathering from here is that maybe have some kind of establish a group with appropriate representatives from maybe all of these area 8 areas, whether it's a family member or whomever is appointed to be, I mean, not the keepers, but, you know, if somebody's going there or whatever, is that they would call the person or the group to ensure that the protection that is in place is indeed being followed, or I don't know, I just using the word of protection to protect what's already supposed to be protected. So maybe to add that in versus, establishing a visitation education, it can be turned into something that says that a group would be appointed to ensure the protection of these areas in South Maui.
Everett?
There are already, every preservation plan and burial treatment plan already has that. So it's already documented. It's already been approved by the Bureau, Maui Lanai Island Burial Council and the SHPD for reserves. So I think going back to your suggestion in terms of establishing cultural parks, preserves, and heritage corridors for visitation, education, period. Because these other 8 are already done. There's already approved plans. So I don't think we need to mention them or draw attention to where burials are.
So I agree with you. I don't want this.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Can I maybe a friendly amendment to my, I'll amend my motion to just say establish cultural parks, preserves, and heritage corridors for visitation and education, period, and delete the rest of it.
Jennifer? Okay. Further discussion?
Great, I'm sorry, Everett. So you're saying to establish a parks, preserve, and heritage corridor? So, wait, establish cultural parks, preserve, and heritage corridors, but not specifying. So we're drawing attention to these places?
No, we're deleting 1 through 8.
Yeah.
And we're just saying that in our planning for South Maui,
Uh-huh.
we want cultural parks, preserves, and heritage corridors, visitation, and education. So as projects come forward, that's something that's important to our community, to have cultural parks, preserves, heritage corridors for visitation and education.
Okay. I think I got it. Because I think before it was about having some kind of signs to say what this and this is and so forth. So we're saying no to that for these in particular.
For these, signage is built into the approved preservation plan.
It's already done.
It's already done.
Yeah. Because I remember us talking about this. So, okay, yeah, definitely. I mean, remove it. But I also you said there's the groups already that are obviously I know that. But it's just like more protection, just to make sure. But I get it. I just have to voice my opinion in terms of really protecting. And I really listened to what Lena Ala had said very carefully. So, okay, I got it.
So, so already these areas in Honolulu is already cared for by like the Lu'uais, Ka'anui's family, and Kulaloyos. And what Everett was saying is, it's all these preservations, it's already in place already, done. So I would just, we're not going to even bother with this, 1 through 8, because we get families already recognized and have the access to Malama, according to what they feel should be cared for in their own way. For me, protocol would be, if anything I get called upon that's going to happen in Honolulu, I know already what families I'm going to ask first or approach first, because that's their vahi, that's their place. That's protocol. So we don't need these 1 through 8 because there are families already recognized by the state. Burial treatment plan, preservation, historic preservation is all in place already.
So in reference to, I think, the culture sites that we were going to identify. I think, Rob, you had sent out a list, and it wasn't a formal list that you had sent out, I think, a couple weeks ago?
It's a different issue.
Okay.
It's not an action.
Okay, but, so, okay, it's a different issue, but are these names are going to be on it?
I don't know, but we need to decide that separately in any case. We need to take a decision on Everett's motion.
Okay. I guess
Can I just ask one quick clarification? Now that we've removed the preservations and some of the burial grounds, is preserves appropriate still to be included in the motion, or should it just be established cultural parks and heritage corridors and removes preserves?
I think it would be appropriate because there might be some parcels, not in addition to these 8, that preserves are appropriate.
For visitation and education, what I was hearing in the testimony is that the visitation and education part is not part of the preserve. So
there could be, depending on the parcel.
Again, I was just trying to clarify, because to me it sounded more as if we wouldn't want to have preserves, but if everybody says it's okay.
Further discussion? Mike?
I know Daniel had asked if we could wait one more week to see if he get that written testimony for clarity. He wanted to think about it more, and he did mention that the 2 members who are absent tonight might be included. So I think that's a reasonable thing to wait one more week. I know the planning department is saying we're trying to wrap things up, but I think this is just one segment to wait one more week to take a vote on. So I would support Daniel's request for that. Mahalo.
So we have a motion on the table and a second. So unless the person who made the motion withdraws it, then we need to take a position on that motion. Is there further discussion needed on this motion? Okay, so I'll take a vote on this. Those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand.
Chair, could you restate the motion?
The motion is to remove everything after education.
The current action would state establish cultural parks, preserves, and heritage corridors for visitation and education.
Those in favor? And those against? And I'm abstaining. Okay, so that passes. Okay, anything else on actions? Okay, we're at 8:23, so I don't think there's any point to starting on the maps and land use designations at this time. So closing the meeting at 8:23 p.m.
Chair, are you adjourning or are you recessing?
Adjourning.